welcome to the Objective Secure podcast. My name's Mike.
Hi, I'm Emma.
This is episode 36, Crisscross. I love the intro song for this.
Jump, jump.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we're going to be talking to...
I think we should have called the episode Jump, Jump. But anyway, carry on.
Well, we could redo the intro now if you like.
No, keep going.
Okay. We're going to be talking to one half of the 40k organisers for CanCon, Chris, aka Uni.
Chris as opposed to the other Chris.
Hence the Crisscross. Chris writes for Frontline Gaming Australia's Facebook page and website. And he's just done some stuff on First Blood, and it was kind of all well-timed because we got a chance to talk to him and answer his questions, and he got to answer ours. Mm-hmm. So CanCon, obviously the biggest ITC event to ever be hosted in Australia. 140 players on the day. Mm-hmm. And with us venturing into ITC territory for 2019, it was a good time to chat to him about what happened at the event. And
even without that, really, we just wanted to see what happened at the event and chat to him. And we obviously spoke to him before the event, so we wanted to talk to him after and find out how it had all gone. Yeah,
so it's a decent length interview, and I've done our best to edit the sound quality. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Skype and Discord being what they are, we can only do so much with the sound, so I've done my best.
There has been a few beeps to edit out some of the swearing.
Yeah, I couldn't find a beep that we could legally use, like that was free to. So I've just killed parts of the.
Really, you couldn't have just gone beep.
It's actually a lot harder to do that than you might think.
I think it's quite easy. Beep. See, just like that.
Yeah, putting that audio in is another matter entirely.
No, it'd be fine.
So, we've tried to keep our PG rating, so so we have deleted about 4 or 5 words that he uses in the 50-minute interview, just to make sure we keep our PG rating on Spotify and iTunes. So I have to apologise to him. He doesn't know I've done that yet. He'll find out with the rest of them when they listen. So, sorry, Chris. That's okay, though. We're going to move on. Because we were recording this after that interview, we actually get a bit more time to talk about news and releases. We've only got less than a week before the next Vigilus stuff is released for Warhammer 40,000, with all the preview models for Abaddon and the teaser pictures of all the new Chaos models. So in about a week's time, I'm sure that the live next week, actually depends on the timing, because obviously it's the UK time. It might actually be after we do our live next Wednesday. We should hear screams from Games Workshop Fremantle as Mitch squeals in delight at the release of the War Master miniature. I know he's super excited about it, and I am as well. The miniature looks great from the little leaks that we have had. We've had the Genestealer Cult Codex FAQ drop, which has created some more interesting interactions and some more arguments between players.
I prefer lively discussion.
No, it's arguments.
Right.
And it's funny because... Chris and I were talking about it when we did the interview, but obviously what we'd seen wasn't the official FAQ. It was just sort of leaked data, and we both agreed on an interpretation. And then, like 6 hours later, I've come back to him and gone, "No, actually, I don't know why I do agree with you anymore." So there's already some consternation around what's been said and what hasn't been said, essentially. So nothing new.
No, not at all.
We've also seen previews of the new Codex Assassins that's coming out in White Dwarf, and this has again created some controversy online because it sets a precedent that we saw in January with Crimson Fist's release in White Dwarf for so the chapter rules specific to them, whereas this is a full-blown essentially replacement for the Index because it includes the full assassin data sheets, all their points costs, all their stratagems, how you include them in Imperial armies, how you include them in other armies, which again there is a gap in the rules. It basically means you can put them in a Chaos army, bizarrely. It's a bit convoluted to do it, but you can do it. But
somebody will find a way.
I've already found a way.
Yeah.
I'm sure that'll get closed relatively quickly. And we also see it as I see it as a precedent for Games Workshop to finally phase out the indexes, which I cannot wait for. And I'm sure there's going to be people listening to this who scream at me going, "Are you kidding? What's wrong with you?" As a TO, as soon as those books go, the better. I'd rather give up the units that I have in my armies to the shelves of history and only bring them out for fun narrative games using the old index rules than continue dealing with them as a TO to check army lists and figure out the flow chart interactions with what weapons you can and can't have. So yeah, I'm really hoping that the remaining few units that they're not really units. They're kind of the units that sit in their own little standalone codex slots in those indexes will transition into White Dwarf upgrades, because there's only 4 of them left.
Do you think that's going to be any different? How's it going to be different having White Dwarf upgrade as opposed to bringing the index?
So at the moment, there's 4 left: the
Yeah.
Inquisition, the Sisters of Silence, the Legion of the Damned, and the Yanari.
Mm-hmm.
They're basically the 4 factions, in inverted commas, that are in indexes that don't have codexes.
Mm.
But in the using Imperial Guard, the Astra Militarum as the example, in Imperium Book 2, alongside the Inquisition and the Sisters of Silence, you also had the Assassins, and you also had the Astra Militarum.
Mm.
Now, the Astra Militarum have got their own codex, but there are units in the index that aren't in the codex.
Mm.
There are also options in the index that didn't make it to the codex, and this is all off the back of... It's an assumption, but it's all off the back, as far as I can tell, of the chapter house legal thing about them. If they don't have a model, they basically don't support it anymore.
Mm.
So by killing the indexes, it means that units like Rough Riders that aren't in the codex basically don't exist anymore, and there aren't any models for those anymore. Like, they don't sell Rough Rider models. So by discontinuing the indexes, any model that isn't in a codex essentially becomes obsolete.
I understand that. What I don't understand is how having them in the White Dwarf fixes that.
Well, it means they can make the indexes obsolete. Those 4 armies, those 4 factions, they sit outside of any of the current codex structure.
Mm.
So if they come out and go, okay, cool, here's the data sheets for the Yanari, the Legion of the Damned, the Inquisition, and Sisters of Silence in a White Dwarf, and they give you the stratagems, the warlord traits, and the relics like they've done with the Assassins, then they can turn around and discontinue production of all the indexes. And as far as I know, the digital ones have essentially been discontinued as well already. Like, you can't get all of them online. But what it'll mean is that there's a flowchart that lurks around in the background of one of the FAQs that tells you how to use options that are in the index but not in the codex, which means that if you take an autarch from the Eldar codex, you can still give it options that aren't available anymore to represent past models, which is fine. But then you get weird interactions where the flowchart doesn't really make it clear as to whether you can or can't take certain options because the datasheet's name's changed, and there's just a really murky area with...
So essentially, is what's going in the White Dwarf an updated version?
Yeah.
So it is exactly the same. It's just, it will be a newer version that doesn't have these...
Yeah, all the weird oddities. And that means they can then trash the index books, which is something they said they were going to do right at the start. The index books always had a limited lifespan. And then there's so many people already online complaining that, I'm not going to be able to use my Space Marine captain on a bike, or I'm not going to be able to use my Trueborn for my Drakari, or I'm not going to be able to use whatever option, or Rough Riders for my Astra Militarum. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm willing to mothball models, and I've done it not every edition, but I've done it with plenty of editions, in the interests for matched play, to make it easier for match play to be managed.
That's a lot easier to say when you've got an entire shed full of models. Like, if you've only got 2,000 points and you now can't use 500 of them because those models aren't going to exist, that's a big hit to take.
I don't think that's going to be the case, though. I mean, the Rough Rider models haven't been produced actively since 2nd edition. So anyone who's running Rough Riders now has obviously converted them from something else. And I get that. Like, you want to use them, that's fair enough. And there's nothing stopping you using them. You just won't be able to use them in match play anymore. I think I've got probably 10 different autarchs that I will essentially not be able to use at tournaments anymore, because they would go...
Also easy when you hardly go to any tournaments. I'm prepared to not use these in tournaments that I don't go to.
But that's kind of my point. If you're playing with your mates and playing fun hobby games, then the indexes disappearing if you already own them isn't going to make a lick of difference.
Look, I hear what you're saying, and I think I'm probably arguing for the sake of arguing, but also because I don't think that we can say that this is...
Well, my opinion is it's a good thing.
Yeah, and I hear that clearly I hear that loud and clear. But I guess it depends on what, if you're playing with friends and you want to get ready so that you can be a stronger tournament player, well, then obviously you're not going to be using these. So you then essentially have redundant models.
Yeah, but like I say, the models that it would make redundant are ones that don't have current models, and in most cases have never had current models. Like there are entries that they've never, in the history of Games Workshop, they've never had, maybe in Rogue Trader? There definitely hasn't been one since the plastic kit came out. There's never been a Space Marine captain on a bike. Never. There's never been a librarian on a bike. There has been a chaplain on a bike.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of view it in the light, like I've got Spirit Warriors and Ghost Warriors from my Craftworld Elder, very early days of Craftworld Elder that I can't use anymore.
Must be devastating. I mean, it's not like you've got many Craftworld Elder, so however do you manage not using those?
I've got plenty of Harlequins, back again, Rogue Trader days that I can't use anymore because the weapon options are all weird for tournaments. Like they've got web guns and las pistols and all sorts of craziness, which just don't comply with the WYSIWYG requirements of a tournament. And I kind of view it in that same light, is that it's a natural progression of the game where Games Workshop, from a business point of view, is shoring up its assets and making sure that they're legally covering their intellectual property. And they've given the fans 2 years of these models and indexes. And like I say, there's nothing stopping you using them or making your own rules for them after they kill the indexes.
Yeah, when you're playing with friends.
It's just going to make managing events much better and much easier, particularly when you're trying to check lists. It also means that there's less weird interactions, like the mess with the Inari in the index, between the index and the FAQ, the Inari rules. Like if you didn't need the index to get the actual character rules, you actually don't need the index because they've had to redo the rules for Inari so many times in the FAQ, they've had to essentially reproduce the whole thing. So, like I say, I do think the indexes have outlived their worth.
Yeah, I think you've made your opinion on that matter clear.
Yeah. I just don't want to deal with them
see
anymore.
It again, just in case anybody was unsure.
Anyway, I'll get off that little soapbox then, shall I?
Yeah, I would.
We've also seen a bunch of previews for Age of Sigmar, and obviously we've spoken about the Underworlds warband for the Sylvaneth, which still looks amazing. I haven't actually seen them released yet, though, so...
haven't been to a GW store for quite some time, though.
No, that is true.
Could have been released, and we just haven't been there.
Yeah. I'm heading down to Beyond Games and Hobby this weekend for Uprising 2019, which is cool because it's going to be my first tournament for 2019. And I actually don't remember the last one I played in prior to that. Might have been actually WATC.
No, you played at Crags the end of last
year.
I
did, yes. I did play at Crags, you're right. But this will be cool because there's a couple of us going to take the drive down.
Road trip.
Yeah, I think they've got they're capped out at 24 players. I think they've still got a couple of spots left. But yeah, there's 3 of us going down in the car together, and that leaves enough space for the 4th seat to put the display boards and the carry cases and all the rest of it. So that'll be a good day. I did really well at this event last year, actually. I won generalship for it. Went 4 for 4, so we'll see if we can repeat that this year. I'm not holding my breath because the game has changed, and
your army hasn't.
Oh no, this is a different army from last year. But I really wanted to take the Gene Stealer cult, and they're not ready. No. As in, they're still bare plastic. So, what else have we had happen? We are full steam ahead for organising Show 2019.
Southern Hemisphere Open, 1st to the 3rd of June at Claremont Showgrounds, Silver Jubilee Pavilion.
That's finally all locked away and whatnot. So we think we've got all the tournaments. Well, I think I've still got 2 or 3. We're just trying to finalise the organisers for.
So just bring up that so we can see what actual events we've got happening. So obviously we've got 40k happening on 2 days out of the 3, so 2 one-day tournaments. And on the 3rd, it will be a kill team event. So
that way you can play 40k all 3 days if you so choose. It's just going to be a kill team. So kill team on the
narrative ones haven't been finalised.
No, we haven't put them in
so
here yet either.
There's potential that there's another.
There's a chance
that added in.
Yeah. So the goal here has always been to try and put a fantasy, a sci-fi, like try and spread them out so that there's a natural. If you want to play say, sort of bolt action, real world military stuff, you can come all 3 days and play all 3 days in a similar sort of genre. Maybe not the same game.
We're not doing 3 days of bolt action,
No,
although we are doing 2 days.
We got 2 days
this
bolt
year.
action and Team Yankee.
Ah.
So we got 40k. So we got Kill Team Saturday and then 40k Sunday, Monday. Age of Sigmar on the Saturday, Underworlds on the Sunday, alongside Kings of War and Middle Earth also on the Sunday, with Dark Age and War Machine and Malifaux kind of falling into the Monday in that sort of steampunk fantasy genre. Like we said, Bolt Action is Saturday, Sunday, plus Team Yankee on Monday. Blood Bowl's going to be Saturday and Sunday because we're doing a Blood Bowl Sevens format on the second day, which is great. X-Wing will likely fall on the Saturday. War Machine, we're going to be hosting the Perth Champs this year at show, which is exciting.
So that's our only 2-day event, isn't it? But even that one's
still
a bit
one
different,
days,
isn't it?
Yeah. So when you participate in the Perth Champs, you don't actually have to play both days because it's 2 separate one-day events, but it is going to be Sunday, Monday. We've talked about Malifaux already. We're also doing Heresy, which will be on the Saturday. Adeptus Titanicus is turning up on the Monday, and that's partly to do with the TO wanting to play in another event. So this is how it worked out. And Kings of War, like I mentioned earlier,
we've got two TOs for
Titanicus. Yeah. We've also got the Toy Soldier Cartel offering to run a Bring in Battle hour-and-a-half type event to let you come and play against the Titan. Which I discovered yesterday meant that I had to actually finish my Titan so they could use it. But
right.
So
I'd be looking for an alternative option for that one, I think.
So we've been talking about how we're going to support putting this Titan out and actually using it in videos and stuff so that you can actually see a Warlord on the table. And Courtney came and said, hey, how about we do a sort of a bring-in play game where you get an hour and a half, we match it off, it's a power level game, and you score points based on certain requirements. So once you've taken X many wounds from it, you get 10 points, and then once you take more, you get this many points, and if you kill it, there's bonus points. And we do like a live leaderboard on the day, so that you get an hour and a half to do as much damage as you can, or not be tabled, and at the end of the weekend there's some sort of prize involved for essentially the most points accrued for fighting the Warlord. So I think that'll come to pass. I just don't know what it'll look like at the moment because they're still workshopping that. So it'll mean that if you want to come and do, say, a painting workshop in the morning or in the afternoon, you can still bring an army down and you can play in the free play area, or you can go, cool, I've got 200 power with me. Let's go and play a game. And you can go and have a crack and put yourself on the leaderboard. So I think that's a cool little pickup option there. And an hour and a half seems more than adequate for what it is. And obviously, knowing ahead of time what's happening, you'll be able to bring an army for it. So I thought that was just a cool way of putting the Titan on the table and letting most people will never have to deal with one in a game. So it gives players an option to come out and pit themselves against the biggest hardcore Titan in the game. So, we've got a bunch of volunteers, and we have to say thank you to all of the guys who put their hands up to be TOs this year. It's going to help me no end.
Any girls? Any girls?
No, there are no women on the list at the moment.
I'm still on my own. We have got one female volunteer Natara, who will come and help in all manner of different ways. So thanks very much for that, Natara.
From my point of view with the TOs in particular, it's going to make my job much more manageable. It was probably the biggest failing that I had for 2018 was overstretching myself to try and do too many events with little help. So this is going to make hopefully running the whole event easier.
Do you think you might be a nice person for this time, or will you still be an obnoxious, awful person to be around?
Well, what I was going to say is
just wondering, so I've got some warning.
This is going to take pressure off me, which means I can take pressure off you.
Yeah. So that'll be great.
Well, it's going to be good.
Yeah, it will be. We are still looking for volunteers to help with all manner of different things for shows. So I know we've got a couple of people who have put their hand up, but if you're interested in helping out, that would be great. And also, we're obviously still looking for vendors to come and have a stall.
Yeah, we've actually got a few that I've got to follow up this week.
Yeah, so I know we've talked about it a lot, but for me, one of the reasons that we started Southern Hemisphere Open was the idea of trying to dispel the myth that nothing ever happens in Perth. And so we wanted to put on an event that obviously, brings everything together for what happens in Perth. And part of that is making sure that the clubs have a presence so that we can connect gamers with like-minded gamers and clubs to do that and give them people, I guess, an opportunity to meet some of those members and to decrease some of the anxiety that might be around attending for a first time, or just to raise awareness that the clubs exist. But the same thing for vendors as well. So, we've got some really good relationships with some of the stores that we frequent, but we still often get people saying, hey, where do you buy such and such paint? Or, where's the best place to get brass rod for pinning models, or where do you get your magnets from? That kind of stuff. So we really try and bring the vendors together, and it's not, from our point of view, it's not around making this about... I suppose one of the things I don't like about some events is that you pay to get in there and then it's all just shopping, and then so you're like paying to shop. That's kind of not the point. Part of the point is that it's raising awareness.
Yeah, and...
but also, if you play a game and you really love it, having the opportunity to grab it when you're there and get into it rather than...
And that's one of the reasons why we have the free play space and the clubs coming along to play games, is so that if you do come in and you are there to shop, you can still go and play games and be involved.
Yeah.
Not just coming in to
because you can
spend
just
money.
Go to, if you want to just go and shop, there's heaps of shops around if you know about them.
Well, even online at that point, if all you want to do is save money and buy product, then, that's kind of not what we're there for.
No, and it's also, I guess, around the idea that, everyone who plays X game is this kind of person, or I've heard about that, but no, because this is the stereotype that I've heard, and just going, actually, that's just so not true.
It's funny you say that, because I dropped my Evo off for a car service this morning before we did this recording, and I've walked into Tokyo Motorsports in Welshpool here in WA, and Phil, who I see every service, who I've been going to now for, at least,
years.
Well, it's not quite 10 years. It's probably more like 7.
7, yeah.
I've walked in, he's gone, "Oh, hi, Mike, how you going?" And, we know each other by first name. He's gone, "Oh, I've been listening to you a lot lately." And I went, "What?" He said, "Yeah, your podcast. I listen to you guys a heap at the moment." And I went, "Come again?" He said, "Oh, man, I'm a 40K player from way back. I know Anthony, and, he and I know each other. And, yeah, man, I've been listening to heaps of you guys." And I had a moment of, holy crap.
What's your language?
That's not a swear word.
Yes, it is.
But it that kind of highlights what you're saying, is that, the gamers and hobbyists exist everywhere.
Everywhere. And this is the thing.
Thanks to Tokyo Motorsports, by the way, for looking after my car. It's awesome.
That is a completely unpaid for plug.
It is unpaid for, but I have to give a shout out to the boys because they're awesome.
And you really want your car in a good condition if you happen to be listening to this. So, but
I'll have my car back by the time they hear this. It's fine.
I think that one of the things, I know that I've gone off on a tangent and this isn't supposed to be where we're going with this, but one of the things that I hear often is, nobody else plays this game. There's only 4 of us in WA that play this game. Really?
Well, Dark Age was one that kind of was mentioned in that sort of vein last year, and we had, was it 16 players or something at show last year playing Dark Age?
I
12 or 16?
I've closed that chapter. But yeah, it was...
It was certainly more than the handful that...
And that was... Matt has done an amazing job building that community, as well as...
And backed by Alpha Strike as well.
Yeah, definitely. But, I see him building people's models, painting people's models,
getting them involved,
literally everything he can, short of going to their house, picking them up and making them come to play at different events. And even that, I think he'd do. If you said, "I can't get there," I still,
He might, yeah.
I'm not suggesting that you should ring him and say you can't get there. But, he's done an amazing job building that community. But my point is that you don't know what you don't know. So you may only know 4 people who play this game, but as you said, you've known the guys at Tokyo for 7 years, and it's never come up in conversation that you play the same game.
No.
So I think that's the point of this, is that we're trying to reach out and get as many people as possible to come together so that we can just create those connections and create that community and build the hobby, because if we don't build it, then what's going to happen?
Exactly.
All right, I'll get off my
That's your soapbox
now.
done?
Yeah.
Okay.
It might not be. I've been known to climb back up again. But at the moment, I've jumped off.
So,
No.
apart from Uprising, we've got Outpost 6030 about to host their next Skulls event. They're split their 2-day event over 2 different weekends. They've had to just...
really clever, actually. I know that that's probably not why they've done it, but I really like that they have done it that way.
Well, they've over the last few years, even pre-show, their Skulls events have turned into, rather than a 2-day single system event, they turned into kind of 2 or 3 system single-day events over 2 days so that they could cater to the whole club, which was really positive. And the change is obviously indicative of the changing nature of the club, because when Skulls first became a thing, it was a Games Workshop only club, and that changed somewhere in the mid-2000s with the constitutional vote. But so they've done the right thing in my mind in catering to their whole audience rather than one little facet of the audience, which doesn't make up the majority anymore either.
Well, no, it's very hard to have a majority when, as we've just...
Yeah, when there's 15 games.
Reeled off, at least 15 games, potentially more.
Well, it's good though, because it means that, you know, you can say, okay, it's a 2-day tournament in brackets, but I can go and play Heresy on one weekend and 40k on the other weekend, but they're 2 weeks apart.
Yeah.
Which makes it far easier and more... It's easier to swallow from a family point of view.
Exactly.
Rather than losing a whole weekend. And that's... We've had a few players ask us why we don't do many 2-day tournaments anymore. And part of it's obviously family related. I mean, we've got kids and other commitments outside of running tournaments. And 2 days for us is a hard one to achieve.
Yeah.
And we might not be the norm, but I don't think that we're an underrepresented demographic. So, as the gaming population that comes to events has aged, rather than being the late teens and early 20s, we're now talking an average of mid-20s or late 20s.
I'm not sure we are. I think we have a really good spread for demographics.
But
if you think about the last
that's kind of my
event.
point.
Yeah, but you're saying that the tournament event attending population has aged. I'm not sure that it has. I think that we are appealing to a wider audience now.
Yeah, okay.
We still had guys in their late teens,
yeah, that's
early
true.
20s.
First Blood, the youngest player in the room was 17.
Who was that?
Mike Sloan.
He's 18.
Is he 18 now?
He turned 18 last December.
Oh, excellent.
Belated 18th. Happy 18th, Mike.
Yes. See, I deliberately, because he was helping us out on the day, I was keeping an eye on him going, you better not go and ask for a beer.
Oh, well, no, actually, he could have gone and asked for a beer
there we
because
go.
he's 18, and I did know that.
I wasn't 100% certain, so...
But I will also ask to see ID if you look under 25, or I don't know. Or like poor Eric, who I ask for ID every single event.
Despite
the fact that I now know that he's in his mid-20s, I still look at him and think, are you like 17? No, not anymore.
No, he's a marine biologist and very...
a fully fledged grown-up.
Yep, very sort of educated and intelligent man, so just means you're getting old.
There is that. Yeah, there is that.
Well, why don't we take a break and get into the interview with Chris, and then we'll wrap up the episode after the interview, as we normally would. So we'll just take a quick break and be back in a second. Right, so we're going to talk some CanCon today with our, I suppose, head TO, head judge. What's the best title for you, Chris?
Oh, we were co-head. It was me and Yates. We like to call ourselves Team Crisscross.
Yes,
I did read that earlier, and did think want to make you jump, but
Oh, I think you might have just found the intro music for me to put on this episode. I like that idea. I hope you two...
We love it because we feel like it's so stupid.
Well, you did make a few players jump. You had like 100 and... How many actually turned up for the day? Was it 150 even, or was it 146? I vaguely remember that being the number touted.
It was 100 and... I've got 141.
I thought it was more than that.
Down under pairings has 140. I don't know what happened to Aaron Martin on their scores.
Actually, we had an issue like that recently as well. So
Honestly, no, I'm looking at the spreadsheet wrong. 140. So we had 142 checked in.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had 2 guys drop round 1.
And how many tickets sold?
Oh, that was 140. Oh no, 150. We sold 150.
Okay.
We had before the event started, we had 8 drop, and then we had 2 drop just before round 1.
That's pretty standard sort of attrition rates for.
About 5%.
I mean, we for First Blood just recently we had 70 tickets sold, and then in the week leading up to the event we had tickets change hands. Probably 6 different tickets change hands across different players, and then we finally had 2 not turn up on the day, but we had 2 guys rock up on the day hoping to get spots. So it was.
Oh wow! Okay.
It's
We didn't have any of that.
I suppose it's one thing for a one day event in.
And we only had 70 tickets available, whereas when you've got 150 players who have bought tickets, you might have
exhausted the pool a little bit.
Exactly, yeah.
So
Yeah,
go on.
We had problems with the swapping of the tickets because the CGS used festival ticket company.
Okay.
They host CanCon, don't they?
Well, CGS hosts it, yeah, but
Yeah.
Festival Tickets is the ticketing company they use.
Mm-hmm.
They're not bad. It's just they're busy, so they don't usually do refunds right until the end. So
Oh,
we had
okay.
a bunch of people that bought like tickets early, and then we had. I'm pretty sure the highest we got was a guy, like the original. It had been sold twice after the original guy had bought it. But I have to keep track of that. Not like so when I like ask for the ticket company to like give me the names of the person, I have to go through and like cross this guy off. No, he sold it to this guy. No, now he sold it to that guy.
We actually had that happen a couple of times with First Blood, but of course we're using PayPal and
An Excel spreadsheet.
and it's
Certainly doesn't happen when we're using Humanitics for our Southern Hemisphere Open tickets.
yeah, Humanitics is a whole different, I suppose, ball game for us when we do the bigger events.
Yeah. So overall, how did the event go?
I think better than last year. I think it went really well. We wanted it to be bigger, and it was bigger. The things that we wanted to do differently, they worked. Like we wanted to have a stream there, we got that. The stuff that we wanted to bring back last year, like the TV with the clock on it, we wanted to check everyone in beforehand and get round 1 off on time, and we did all that.
Oh, awesome.
Getting that first round off on time is always hard and the bigger the event gets, the harder that is.
Yeah. So we force checked everyone in the night before on BCP.
Oh, okay.
And then just we paired it a little bit. Like we didn't want anyone to be thinking about the game too much of who they were playing. We only wanted like 15 minutes, and in hindsight we probably should have done it a little bit earlier, maybe like an hour or 2 hours before the round started, paired it
just so that people can get to their tables when they first walk through the door and
yeah, kind of thing. So we left it a little bit late for some of the rounds, but some of that was due to we entered all of the players' scores.
So that was an interesting question we had. So you were using Down Under pairings and Best Coast pairings,
and
is that
paper
right?
as well.
And paper. Oh, God.
Yeah.
So what happened? What was the
Oh.
thought process?
So BCP via FLG is the major sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So and we were always going to use BCP. Obviously, Diffy and Adam were coming up to stream for the Down Under network.
Yeah.
And because they were coming, we were like, well, if there's any way that we can help you, because you're going to put all your stats in anyway. Do you know what I mean? And they wanted to, well, I think it was Adam, had the idea of like we could try and do what they did at ATC in WA, how they did the Dream Team thing.
Yeah.
So they were like, Diffy's like, that's a good idea, but we've got to come up with some stats. And I was like, well, we're happy to give you guys the score sheet. I'm like, I don't have time though to enter them in Down Under pairing. So like, I'll give you the stats. Like I'll give you the bits of paper. But then we had a bunch of problems, or we didn't have a bunch of problems. We had some problems last year at CanCon with players entering their own stats. Because everyone forgets, it seems, that, well, some people don't play ITC a lot, but when you table someone, you don't get 5 points after the round you tabled them in. So a bunch of people were escalating their scores by tabling someone on turn 2, getting like 4 points on turn 2, but then giving themselves 5 points every round after that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it wouldn't get picked up sometimes until like way too late, and we wouldn't be able to fix it. And it happened at WinterCon really badly, and there was an incident at WinterCon where some players got some scores that we felt as players there watching it that it was either near impossible or very close. Like they were just too close to each other. So we were like, you know what? We're gonna get rid of any of that, and you're gonna give me a score sheet. I'll enter it for you.
That's a heck of a lot of scores
That's
to
a
be
massive
entering.
data. Yeah, so it's like 70
Well,
tables
70
worth.
tables, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was fine, except I have now learned that 40k players, for the life of them, cannot enter score sheets.
No.
Yeah, no, we know that. Yep.
So it goes from like it's. If it was all the same, it would have worked. But like on round 1, they'll circle the boxes. Like they'll circle the things they got. On round 2, they'll tick the boxes they got, and you're like, okay, well, that's not that bad.
That's a progress.
On round 3, they'll circle the ones that they got and write an X through the ones they didn't get.
Yep.
Randomly. And then on round 5, they'll do something completely different as well.
We've had them highlighted before. We've had all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff. So
I suppose where I really struggle when I was entering scores is that you'd have, for example, Paul as player 1 and Dave as player 2, and then Paul had put his scores under Dave's column, and and then you kind of going, I thought you said you'd won. Why does this look like this? And or Paul can't add up, so you've kind of going, this should come to this, and I'm getting a totally different number. What's going on here? And when you've got 70 scorecards to have to enter, to be calling them over to try and explain what's going on gets really difficult.
Well, the worst we had was the last year's WATC, where we had, that was 120 players, and we were still doing that manually at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like a similar sort of scenario, except with ITC, of course, you're having to do the secondaries every single round. So the score sheet's essentially an A4 sheet per table.
Yeah.
So, and obviously getting those secondaries right is really important for the scoring, because if you get them wrong, then it throws the scores way out. Because the cap's about 42 points or something per player, isn't it?
Yeah,
Chris?
42 points is the maximum you get. You're rarely getting a 42 though. Like it's really hard for you to get 38 plus.
And that's the thing, when you see a player hand a score sheet in that totals 45, there's instantly got to be problems.
Yeah, well, when it totals 45, it does kind of ring some alarm bells straight away. But I guess that's something for us to think about as we've got an ITC event coming up. There is no way that I'm manually entering everyone's score for them. So we need to...
The big reason why we wanted to do it as well is because the event was going to count for the trip to Vegas.
Yeah.
And it did. It came down to the wire. I think Morrisoli only won by like 2 points or something.
He did all right at CanCon though, didn't he? Like, I know obviously he didn't win it.
He came in the top 10, I want to say.
I vaguely remember seeing, obviously...
Yeah, he came sixth out of the whole thing.
Yeah.
But like Chris Wright came just behind him. And then Lee came in at 9th. So they were coming like 1, 2, 3 going into the event.
Yeah,
so,
knocking on the door. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they finished right next to each other.
Look, at least it made the ending of the event exciting, because for those of you who are listening and aren't aware, the prize for winning 40k CanCon wasn't what we're talking about. The prize for ranking number 1 in the ITC rankings in Australia is what we're talking about, which was a not all expenses paid, but kind of all expenses paid trip to Vegas to play at LVO for 2020.
Well, it's flights and accommodation, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yep, flights and accommodation this time. Next time we're just doing flights.
The flights are obviously the lion's share of the issue. if you when I did LVO, we shared a room, or I shared a room with another guy, and it cost me about $500 for the 4 nights accommodation. So it wasn't certainly wasn't untenable, but the flights are always going to be the biggest expense for that trip. So winning ITC's a nice way to get that covered. So, and that's the single biggest ITC event in Australia now, isn't it? CanCon 2019.
Yeah. With we beat our record the year before.
Yeah.
So yeah, we did it back to back, and I don't think. Well, no, I don't think any team events come close yet either. But then team events are weird as well because
for the rankings points, yeah.
Yeah, like it still counts. Like even if you had like 120 players, but there were teams of 2, you would still be classified as a 60-player event. It's weird.
Yeah, I haven't figured that one out yet. That's something to worry about after show for us.
Yeah, we'll sort that out later. So going back to the scoring system and using the 3 different systems, were there any issues with that?
We weren't really to round 1 and 2. We didn't really check. Like we were loosely looking. Like we were looking at ones. Anyone that was like 38 plus, we were checking.
Yeah.
But a lot of the score sheets, and I think this came down to I didn't think players were going to be, because I'm real meticulous about my score sheet.
Yeah.
So I just thought, I don't know, stupidly, that other players would also care about their score sheet. More so when, like, if I had to give my score sheet to a TO, I would hand it to him and I would be like, dude, I'm here until you need to enter it. Because I want to make sure he enters the correct score. And I want to make sure if he's got any questions. Dudes just handed their score sheet in and ran, didn't have their names on it and stuff. We had to chase a bunch of people.
Yeah.
But some of them, like, can't add. A bunch of people we found out, it was only 2 or 3 that they should have won games.
Yeah.
But they were the person that added it up, and they added it up wrong.
Yeah.
And it changes a draw to a win or a draw to a loss.
Yeah, they were all that. It was all draws to wins, or they were like, they lost, they won by 1 point, but on the score sheet they lost by 1 point. So we felt bad, but then we didn't, because you're the dude that's meant to fill out the score sheet. Yeah,
it's a tough one where, I mean, obviously, if we had the opportunity to have as much, enough judges, then yeah, it'd be great to have judges entering score sheets. But there's got to be some onus on the players to do the right thing and get the right scores in the software. And even when it's handing in scorecards to the TOs, like we've said, you can't sit there and look at 70 different score sheets to make sure everyone's 100% correct. And obviously, you'll find them where they'll have a table number but no names on them, and you'll have to go and find those players, or you'll find 2 names playing but not the table number, and you'll have to go looking for that sort of information. So
it was about 20 per round.
Oh jeez.
And it was day 1, round 3 onwards, we checked every single scorecard.
Oh my goodness.
And obviously, like, user error, I think there was a couple after that, and we kind of had a second layer of checking, because obviously Down Under Network was there as Down Under Pairings, and they were also usually a round behind entering some of the score sheets. Yeah. They had some people helping them do that, because we didn't have any helpers other than the 2 main TOs, and then we had 2 people like being backup, or not backup TOs, part of the TO team.
Yeah,
which
on
is
the floor.
Matt Blair and Michael Moore. So what we didn't want to do is to take away them from TOing. That's what they were there to do.
So were they TOing or were they judging?
I suppose this is one of those weird vernacular that comes about.
Yeah, we didn't really have like major things. We would come together and we would discuss. Me and Chris had the final say on everything, but we also let them, because I was comfortable, both Michael and Matt being very experienced players, to be able to make the right call on stuff. So.
And I suppose that's what I was getting at. I'm wondering, were they more in a judge capacity rather than a TO capacity? I guess the TOs do more of the organising and
loading scorecards and
that kind of thing. Whereas when you've got them on the floor being able to make decisions, and I hear what you're saying, that if there was something where it came to having to make an interpretation of rules, then yourself and Chris got involved in that. But if it was just a case of, well, this is what the rules say, and that kind of thing, then having them able to make those decisions so that you were able to do more of the organising is useful.
Yeah, we did it both ways. So if we weren't there and they were comfortable, they could make the call.
Yeah.
But then, because this is the first event that we've run that had the ITC players conduct pack thing involved in there. It has a section in there about like snap calls and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That TOs or judges can make, like just for that game. They were aware of that and stuff like that. If there was, I think Matt came to me with a big one that he made, and I think Michael did once as well.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, yeah, they made their own calls on stuff. We got it right for the most part.
I think the hard part, though, when you do start incorporating judges as part of the TO group, is the consistency across the event, so that the same ruling is applied to every player consistently and evenly, and it's about finding players that you can trust to make those calls, and that you can, like you say, you can leave them to it and let them go and be safe in the knowledge that they're doing what they should be doing.
Yeah, I think we were very big on discussing everything that had happened. So as soon as Matt was like really good at this. As soon as he said anything to a player, like kind of thing, and then like, okay, cool, continue guys or whatever, he would boost off and he would like come and find us.
Yeah.
He was like, hey, on table 17, I just told these dudes this, or I just had to give a warning to these guys for blowing up on this. So, and we kept a record of like all the warnings. We didn't keep a record of all the rulings we had made, but definitely like the players we had spoken to.
So what
about,
kind
like,
of
warnings and problems and stuff?
What kind of warnings were you issuing, and what kind of problems were you experiencing in order to warrant those warnings?
Without naming names to keep,
of
to
course,
protect the innocent.
I don't care about protecting the innocent, but yeah, okay. The warnings were all like very, very small things. Well, that I guess would have been big things if they had kept on going, but then obviously that's why you give a warning. So like some of them was like moving a little bit further than you should have, like ghost moving models.
Ruler sliding.
Ruler sliding kind of thing. We had a weird Death Watch one, which was not declaring your special ammo until after you'd rolled and seen the result.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that happened like twice. That was weird.
Okay.
Because like you clearly knew that you weren't meant to do that. But anyway, but yeah, they're all like little things like that. So it wasn't like really big things. And sometimes the players that were doing it legitimately like were how like you're stressed playing fast. You're on like because it's 8 games. You might be on like your 5th game win streak. Do you know what I mean? Like you're in that position where you're like, Jesus, I'm doing really well. Like, do you know what I mean? So, and then you're rushed and you're playing. There was a lot of slow armies there, not like slow players, but just slow armies, like real large model count armies.
Yeah, I saw a few that were well in the 200s.
Was sweating. They were sweating bullets. So like just trying to do everything. So, but everyone took warnings in stride. We only gave 3 yellow cards out.
Oh, so most of them were just literally pull your head in type.
Yeah, a lot of them. We should have given 1 more yellow card, and we didn't. Between 2 players that were both yelling at each other, but it was the second last game of the day, and we just gave them warnings. But that probably should have been yellow to both, but it wouldn't have mattered because neither player had received any yellows. But yeah, 1 player got 2 yellows. One was for a score issue, and another one was for he got 3 warnings, so it just turned into another yellow.
That was the first time you've used the ITC sort of yellow-red system, isn't it? The Code of Conduct?
Yeah, first time we'd done it, and we really liked it.
Okay.
We gave yellows as well for late list entry.
Oh, okay.
We gave 3 yellows for the event, but then those dudes that we gave yellows to didn't do. Do you know what I mean? They were fine all event.
That's harsh for a late list.
We didn't see that way at all. Like if I can understand, like if we ask people to do something and 100 And because this is when we were at 150 players.
Yeah.
So we had 147 players do the thing we asked you to do, and 3 of you didn't. Like, in my mind, that just so you're not taking this seriously, which is fine. Don't come. Like, I don't want you to come, because if you're treating the event like this and you're like screwing around, and like if 147 other people can get their shit together and submit the list, and then I know at least they're gonna try on the day. But I don't know with you, because you can't even bother submitting your list.
We always end up with I'm trying to think, with First Blood, I think we had, it was probably half a dozen submitted the day after they should have, and that's mostly because the guys all assumed that the submission date was the day after.
Oh, like, this wasn't like you missed the first deadline. So
you missed.
You missed the first deadline, then you missed the second deadline, and then you missed the third deadline.
Oh, okay.
So we gave them, I think it was 3 days after. Like, so every day, it's like, hey, yeah, I'll send it today. Okay. And then tomorrow, like, hey,
I must admit,
that list?
we're actually not too bad. Like with First Blood, we had 70 lists to bring in. We had in the low 60s at the time of submission, and I got onto Facebook and literally just posted all their names in the event and went, hey, if anyone knows these guys, these are the ones I'm missing lists for, and I had them all in within a couple of hours. So we had everything in essentially between 12 and 24 hours late.
We also have to point out that with First Blood, we had a lot of new players who have never played in any event before, and so although it is in the players pack, it's still it's a new system coming to events, and it's also a new system having to learn how to use down under pairings and register for down under pairings and work out how you submit your list and all that kind of stuff. So I think there's a difference when you get players who've never been to an event before who can't get it in on time and who don't know us, as opposed to when you've got players who have been coming for however many years and just don't. So.
The thing is, though, like most of... and it'd be interesting to... Were the 3 players you warned, were they... I don't like using the word veterans, but were they veteran? Like, had they been...
Experienced
They knew what they were doing.
Oh, okay.
I'll leave it like that. But like, we didn't even want you to like log in to BCP and sign up and put your list in. All I needed you to do was email it.
Oh, okay.
Oh God, no, we don't do that. We just put them straight in there.
Because we made a list checking group on Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember seeing several of them and looking through them all with you.
Yeah. I put all the lists in there, and then because that's the other thing as well. I didn't want to make the group until I had all the lists in, because even though you seeing all the lists and then writing your list probably still wouldn't help, even if you were like one of the really good players, because it like, do you know what I mean? You don't know who you're gonna verse, and
you don't.
That whole like random chance.
Yep.
So even if you like looked at the whole like other 149 at the time and were like, hey, this is more stacked, I reckon I could probably counter that, you might then like come up against your counter anyway first game. So.
The bigger the event gets, the less options you have in terms of that sort of... Like, if you're playing a 20-player event, then tailoring a list is completely possible. When you're playing 30, 40, 50, or in, obviously 150... you could very well build a list that would beat Eric Lathuris's list, who won the event. He was like 180 gaunts or something from memory. It was huge.
If you never play him, it's not going to help you.
Yeah. I mean, obviously Eric took a list he thought he'd win with, but he'd be one cog in a machine of probably 20 to 30 players who are ranked highly that you would expect to do well, that you could never really counter all of them. So it's like going to LVO. You can kind of guess who the top players might be, but you can't build a list to beat all of them. Some of it just comes down to luck on the day and the draw.
And isn't that true this year, how that turned out? Like,
absolutely.
All the dudes that people thought were going to do really, really well, did well, but then all got knocked out. What
was interesting is, I don't know if you watched much of the coverage of LVO, CanCon. I watched both. The final with Brandon and Alex, there was a lot of commentary around that where it was, this game's over, the Castellan's dead, the Eldar have won this. And then full credit to Brandon for winning it, and he won it. He was winning the game at the end of every round when the scores were done. So it's...
I really like that game. I saw
well, that's kind of part of what...
About midway through.
That's part of what intrigues me for running an ITC mission for us, an event using ITC missions for us, is that progressive scoring situation. We got a little bit of that at First Blood, obviously using the chapter approved missions from 2018. But the 5 pillars in particular is very reminiscent of ITC missions. So it's going to be interesting to see how Perth players adapt to it, because there's only a handful in WA who've played it meaningfully, as in a couple of our boys were over at CanCon, and they enjoyed the experience. I've played a little bit of it, and there's a few other guys who played a little bit of ITC missions, but it's going to be new territory for us as TOs as much as it is for the players.
So speaking of new territory, when you think about CanCon for this year, what didn't go well for you?
Really good question. The clock this year, for some stupid fucking reason. So we had a 30-inch TV, 32-inch TV with a clock on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, for us it was really easy. And last year, one of the best comments we got was, "The clock's amazing."
Yeah.
We had too many people this year. It wasn't even that many more than last year, but they couldn't see the clock.
Oh wow.
It was so weird. Dudes were like, "I can't see the clock," and I'm like, "Well, the round time didn't change. We started every round on time, so like you could have just looked at your phone." But okay, cool. You couldn't see the clock. Some Infinity dudes had a projector that was shooting onto the wall, so like tons of our feedback was get a projector, and I'm like, I hate you people.
We've one of the venues we used to use on a regular basis has a projector in the roof and a drop-down screen in the roof.
And we have never managed to get a clock on it.
No, we haven't in the last 12 months because they updated to HDMI and now it doesn't work. So, but yeah, that's something that I know our players have appreciated. It's something that we missed actually at show because of the way the screens that we had were used. So I can kind of get that. I mean, you don't want to be if you're enthralled in the game, it's much easier to look up somewhere and kind of take it in without having to take your attention away and look at a phone or an app or something like that. So I kind of get it.
Round times were a little bit weird as well, because we want you to have an hour and a half for lunch every day, or on day 1 and day 2.
So yeah, that was a long day then for you. I mean, you were doing, was it 245 per game?
240.
So 240 per game. 3 games. So what's that? 8 hours worth of games? Yeah. And then an hour and a half for lunch, and then there's one other break in there.
And that was, I want to say it was 40 minutes.
Oh, that is a long break.
It could have been a half an hour.
Well, even at a half an hour, you're still talking a 10-hour day.
Yeah.
And that's 10 hours from the start of the game to the end of the last game, not including the setup at the briefings and the setup at the front, and then obviously the tail end when you're sort of in wind down mode as a TO, sort of getting yourself together ready for the next day.
It was a marathon.
How many guys do you have or guys and girls, I should say, help set up prior to the event? Did you get to set up the day before, or did you have to set up in the morning, or what was the go?
Yes, we got there at I'm going to forget his name as well, so I'm gonna I already feel bad because this dude came down from Queensland. But lunchtime the day before, we got there and all the tables were set up.
Oh, nice.
And then the friendly 40k people swapped some tables with us because they were like, we want to be all in this area. Do you mind? And I was like, no, that helps me because now I've got a bigger area to stream in. So that helped a lot. And then I had a dude come down from Queensland that I can't remember his name. But he helped me set up. We had to do all the chairs.
Yeah.
And that took forever. So we did all the chairs, and then we had, I think it was we had about 5 people.
So when you say tables, you're actually talking about like trestle tables at that point, or
yeah. So they had done all the trestle tables and all the all the wood boards,
and the boards.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we just had to do the mats and the terrain. Frontline Gaming Australia ran to an Izzy a blue attire, and so they got delayed. So we didn't get all the mats later. So we had some guys drop off terrain. Most of the people though that brought their terrain, set it up for them, did it themselves. We had the guys from Victoria, Deptus Victorium.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I said that name right. So that was Matt Morrisoli, Dean Simbeck, I forgot all the other dudes' names.
Well, that's a good
but
point, though, because, I mean, you obviously needed 70 tables worth of terrain. So where did you get all that from?
All community. We're not anything because we're just a dude from Canberra and a dude from Orange.
Mm-hmm.
And we're part of gaming club. So Frontline Gaming in Orange I think they gave 15 tables, and then I have, I want to say 9. I didn't build a bunch though, so I had 6. And then we had Adeptus Victorium or whatever. They bought like 12 or 16. I want to say 12. And then Overwatch, Wargaming from Maitland, and then the dudes from they're on the coast. Same, the Overwatch crew as well, near Newcastle. Those dudes brought down I think 20 between them.
Oh, nice.
And then we had a bunch of like players that brought maybe like 1 or 2 kind of thing. But it ended up got all the way to 70.
Awesome.
And it was a horrible experience. But without those dudes, especially like the Victorian New South Wales club / teams, ITC teams.
Yeah.
Just without them helping, most of the events, I think probably Victorian guys and Overwatch can do most of their stuff just by themselves.
Yeah.
But most of the other events, you need help from other people.
Yeah.
You just don't, and especially if you want to grow the event, you just don't have enough stuff.
No, that's it.
So the thing that really helped this year, because we can get terrain, we can't get mats.
Okay.
Mats is the crazy part. But what Frontline Gaming Australia said, we'll bring, doesn't matter how big your event is, we'll bring every single mat.
Oh, awesome.
And then they also brought terrain as well. They brought 10 tables as well. That was all built, painted.
Beautiful.
And they shipped it down. It rocked up 2 days before the event, which was awesome. Because when they said they couldn't get a truck and they had to ship it, I was like, it's not coming.
Yeah. I'm going to cry.
We've had plenty of those experiences.
Yeah.
And we gave a bunch of it away, and they sold a bunch of it, and they sold a ton of mats. They sold mats off the tables for $100.
Oh, sweet.
So tons of people bought mats. And then they gave us a bunch of mats.
Nice.
They're awesome humans.
Yeah.
So they gave away, I think they gave 22 mats away to Frontline Gaming and to TPO, which is the team I'm in.
Cool.
That was cool.
Yeah.
Because apparently they couldn't sell them for some reason. I don't know why. They were like too squished or something. But to me, they look fine.
Yeah.
I would have sold them for $50. But now in my garage, I have a bunch of mats.
Cool.
We know what that looks like.
Yeah.
All too well.
My wife gave me this very interesting look when I came through the door because she knew CanCon was over and I would stop talking about it. And I came in the house and she was like, "Why do you have 6 mats with you?" And I said, "I didn't spend any money."
I promise.
She said, "You're lucky."
Yeah.
So I've got mats under my bed.
Oh, that's somewhere we haven't thought to start storing terrain and mats, isn't it?
Yeah, we could store boards under there.
Yeah, there's a bit of extra space there.
Oh, you could fit tons of boards up there.
Not sure we get them out again.
Oh,
The mats, I think it'd be easier.
Like wheelie trolley, like a little, like on casters. You could kind of...
Not on coasters, that
no,
wouldn't
casters.
So with
that's a good
CanCon,
idea.
what worked really well?
The stream worked awesomely. The dudes at Down on our network did a really, really good job. The people, I think nearly all the people on stream really enjoyed themselves, and the people that couldn't get to the event really enjoyed it.
It was good for us because we got to see a little bit of it.
Yeah, there was some sound issues and some internet issues we had at the start, and then they had some sound issues at the end with Infinity. I'm pretty sure it was Infinity being too loud, but they worked through that. What else worked really well? While it was really annoying, entering the scores worked really. Like we had a ton of times where we picked up on, if you had entered this score, you would have got 18 more points than you should have.
Oh, okay.
Like kind of thing. Like you would have won anyway, but like
yeah.
you would have inflated your win, which then would have made you face a harder opponent. But then, you know what I mean? If you had beaten that person, you would have had a really big unfair advantage.
Yeah.
So, like, just finding a bunch of them was really good.
I suppose having a decent-sized team to help you achieve a lot of that, though, is almost paramount to the success when you get to that size event.
Yeah, having Mick and Matt help out was really well. It would not have run as smooth as it did without those two. That's about it.
So you're going to do it again next year?
Yeah, no, we're doing it again. We it was really weird. We had a really good relationship with Ranto and Izzy from Frontline Gaming Australia from meeting them at WinterCon.
Mm-hmm.
Because they both came down. But we were playing WinterCon. Me and Chris were playing. We weren't. We don't run WinterCon. It was one event a year is enough for us. We're not savage. We're not like masochists like you two.
Yeah.
So, and we like to play, so we really want to play, and so WinterCon's the event I can play in, and then I play in battle. So from meeting them, and then just leading up to the event, we just became closer and closer and closer to them, and from the event, it built us into joining Frontline Gaming Australia, and then we've kind of turned into this little four-man team, and I'm happy to continue probably doing it until, I don't know, they don't want to do it anymore. And they seem to be keen to do it. I think where I am randomly, like I do a lot of the posting of the stuff, and I do a lot of the background organizing and stuff like that as well. And I think sometimes Chris Yates doesn't feel like he's doing a lot. But without him, I don't think, in my opinion, without him, it wouldn't be as good at all. Like if he didn't want to do it, I don't think I'd want to do it anymore. Because it's like together we make one good TO.
That's pretty much the same as us.
Yeah, it's actually a reasonable assessment, to be honest.
Yeah.
I like it though. It's a lot of fun. It's probably like 2 weeks before the event, I didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, for most of our big events. Yep.
As soon as round one started, it was good. Oh, that was checking everyone in, because we checked everyone on BCP the night before, and that meant we just started. We did the pairings and we started. And it was probably the biggest thing that everyone was happy about, because last year we had to check it. We made everyone check in before the event.
Yeah.
And I think round one was a half an hour late.
Yeah.
It was the biggest complaint. So I think fixing that was, in my mind, one of the biggest things that we could improve on for this year, and we did it, so I was happy.
How did you go, though, when you had players who didn't turn up?
So we just dropped them.
And
so we
then...
sorted. We had two drop, and then some people were late, so we fixed the two dropping by then pairing those dudes. Oh, we didn't pair them together. We let them play a friendly game and gave them both buys, because it was about 10-15 minutes. We sorted it out.
Yeah.
I saw Simon from Queensland had a buy game one, because I was watching his video from CanCon, and then the guy that he played the friendly game against in the bye, he ended up playing 2 rounds later.
Oh, yeah, no, I saw that. Yeah, that was hilarious. Because it wasn't in 2 games later. I remember checking, and I was like, "Oh, is it a repeat?" And at one point, it wasn't. It wasn't going so well for him, I don't think. But Simon ended up winning.
Yeah.
But there was one point where he's like, "Oh."
Well, that's it. It gave his opponent an opportunity to learn from his first game, and
that was funny. I remember that.
So, you off air just before we started recording, obviously you were talking about giving players an opportunity to give you feedback. Why don't we end the topic on your best piece of feedback from the event and your most ludicrous piece of feedback from the event? Because if it's anything like what we get...
Start with the best first.
Yeah, what was the best, most constructive piece of feedback you actually got?
most constructive or best? Because the best feedback we got was you guys are the best. I had so much
True,
fun.
that is
That
the
was the
feedback that
best
I
event
appreciate the
I've
most
ever
as well.
been to.
Yeah.
Um,
So, okay, most useful for you for next year then. Let's rephrase it.
we wanted to can faction awards, and this was because we know that you can game the system.
Yeah.
With ITC events, more on the low side, but it doesn't matter for gaming events or gaming the system if you're going for the best in Australia, because you can't game it.
Yeah.
You can't game it at that, but you can game it at faction awards. Faction awards can be 3 RTTs and 1 major, or 3 RTTs and a GT or a major, and they're only 4 events, and there's some factions that no one plays.
Well, there was the year I went to LVO in 2017, that one event, I missed out on best Corsair at the event because one other dude who finished above me in the rankings had a detachment of Corsairs where his warlord was, and it just met the requirement to be his primary faction. And then after LVO with the ITC points I got, I was the 3rd highest ranked Corsair player in ITC bar none, because no one played them, basically. It was it's bizarre, and you're right. Some players, I mean, things like up until recently, I suspect Gene Stiller Cult would have fallen into that same group. Sisters of Battle.
Yeah. I'm when I'm talking about gaming the system here, I'm more talking about in ITC you can play a legal event with 2 people, and that event can go for five rounds, and it can be an RTT, and one of those 2 people is going to get like 97 points.
Yeah.
And the other person's going to get like 70. You can play a 2-round 4-person RTT, and one person's going to get 109. And the dude that comes second is going to get like 90, and then the third guy's going to get 74.
Yeah, which is...
So So, like, if you're doing Imperial Agents or stupid stuff like that, I guess you still have to win the games, but then there's like the legitimacy of did you even play those games? So, and we were spending... The year before, we did buses and units that were painted, and we ended up all painting them a grey wash kind of thing. But it still costs a lot of money. We still had to some of the the models we bought, some of the models we got donated, or a lot of the models we have donated. But we still had to get someone to paint all them. We had to buy the little trophy things.
Yeah.
Got glued onto. This year we wanted to do a ruler with like a 9-inch, deploy ruler thing.
Yeah.
By Hammerhead. I forgot his name. Tony from Hammerhead. You guys know? Is it Hammerhead Games?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Awesome. Got it. Hammerhead Games, and they have these hardcore. Yeah, because you guys are the distributors for Australia.
Yeah, he's. They've just had their baby, so I'm assuming once Tony's sort of got his feet back under the desk, we're going to start talking about 2019 and obviously CanCon for next year as well.
Which is good, because we're doing that again. It was a bunch of money, but it was still not that bad. So I went into CanCon though, knowing that there could have been some gaming of the system, and me pushing FLG to do something about it, but they had no time to do anything about it.
No, but
because LVO was on, and they can't really.
Yeah.
I want them to change their system, but I just don't think they're going to change it.
Well, I mean, you and I had flagged some issues in the latter part of 2018 around some of those events being listed in and scored for points, where it was 2 players playing 10 rounds to artificially inflate scores. So hopefully, there is going to be some changes to it going forward. And now that LVO is passed, maybe they've got the time to actually look at how it's managed.
So coming back to the, what you just asked, what was the most ludicrous piece of feedback that you got?
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't actually even answer that question. So the best feedback we got was to keep faction awards.
Oh yeah,
It was a big push why faction awards should still be a thing, and how there's some people that play just for faction awards, and how we shouldn't punish them for everyone. So that's why we did it. The most ludicrous feedback was the event because you didn't have the clock on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, awesome.
Yep. Out of all the things that you can complain about, if that's what you've got, you're doing all right, buddy.
I didn't have any. Oh, and then the other one was I didn't have any bad games, but there was 10 tables that didn't have enough terrain, so the event.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third one that I thought was just so ridiculous was I really want more prizes, like flights to Vegas. So if we could get more of them, that would be good.
They would be. That would be good.
And that was I was fine with that because I want more flights to Vegas. If I could give more than one trip away, that would be amazing.
Yep.
The bit that made it bad was, but ITC and BCP.
Oh, Jesus.
So it's like the only reason you have flights to Vegas is because of ITC and BCP. So what do you want me to do?
Yeah, cake, eat it. It's all good.
And we were very clear with all of this. Like, you know what I mean? We were pre-event, especially like we were emailing people, and we were posting in the Facebook thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was very clear who was giving this award.
Yeah.
Frontline Gaming US, Frontline Gaming Australia, and then Business Doctor, which is a Canberra business. Those were the three groups coming together and doing it. And I don't know if people know this or not, but Frontline Gaming and BCP, while they're two separate organizations, are very hand in hand.
Yeah.
So you don't have one without the other.
Yeah, look, and it's frustrating as a TO because you are giving stuff away to the players, and you've obviously got to balance the relationships you've got to get those prizes and make sure that you're doing the right thing by the sponsors as much as you are the players. So, yeah, that strikes me as an interesting paradox there, where I want more of it, but I don't want you to do. I don't want you to deal with the people you're dealing with to do it. So,
and we'd all like to have prizes like that to be able to give away with no strings attached kind of thing, but that's not how it works.
No. We just need the right sponsor with millions, and we need to get like Microsoft or Coca-Cola or
No, they come with strings still.
Yeah, but look, if they're going to give me millions of dollars to give away stuff, I'm happy to put Coke logos on everything. Like that's I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I would sell out for that. Yeah, 100%. Be team Coca-Cola. Wouldn't care. Here you go. Have $1 million.
Yep, I'm right there with you, buddy. I would sign on the team. Like, let me know when you get that sponsorship deal through. And
I want. There's a bunch of beer companies in Canberra that make really good beer, and I want them. And my soft goal for CanCon 2020 and the ITC Odd Champs is to get either Ben Spoke or like Capital Brewery to sponsor it. I don't know how that would work, but I want it.
I don't know if you've seen the photos on this, kind of a link to this topic. There's photos doing the round online at the moment of a tavern here in WA that stocks 40k. Have you seen the photos of this?
I have not, and that is amazing.
It's the Cudale Tavern. I'll see if I can find a link. I'll put it in the show notes of this episode. The guys who work there, the manager and all the staff, are all hardcore gamers. They come to our tournaments, it turns out.
Yeah, they're running the Kill Team event for us.
Yeah, so they're going to be running Kill Team for us at show.
Yeah.
And
awesome.
yeah, they stock. They've got the the big Primera Space Marine cutout, the 7-foot tall one that the store's got.
Oh, yeah.
They've got one of those in the Cudale bottle mart.
In the drive-thru, isn't it?
Yeah, it's sat in the drive-thru for a while there. It moves around a bit, but yeah. So they stock paints and all sorts in the bottle shop. So they're catering to the market. They're you come in, you buy one, you buy the other, you're good. So I'll see if I can find a photo and I'll link that in the notes as well, because it was really cool. We had them approach us and go, "Hey man, this is what we're doing." It's like, okay, awesome. So. We might be able to get some sort of alcohol sponsorship on board.
Not through them.
You never know. They're all franchises. We'll have to chat.
Right.
Anyway, it's getting late for you at the time of recording, so we might as well wrap it up here. Thank you very much for joining us, though, Chris, and for giving us all the info on CanCon 2019. Oh, God, I've got to get that right. It's still on the list for us to go and visit at some point. It's CanCon 2020, maybe?
We'll add it to the list.
Do it.
I'll make you a deal. We'll come over to you if you'll come over to us.
I can't make it to show this year.
Well, it's always 2020.
Oh,
That wasn't a no. I'll take that.
talk to my wife. She's never been to Perth.
Oh,
We've never been to Canberra.
yeah, this is
I can
true.
sell it. I can sell.
Well, why don't we wrap this up a bit? We'll let you go and try and smooth talk that. We'll give you 12 months warning. And then Emma and I'll be back to wrap up the episode in just a second. Well, on that note, we're back. No, I'm not going to edit that out.
Okay.
So thanks very much to Chris for joining us again to talk all things CanCon for 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And we look forward to the 2020 event being bigger and more awesome. You can also check out everything he writes on Frontline Gaming Australia's website and on the Facebook page. There's also an ITC Australia group that he helps run. So you can go and check out anything related to CanCon through those links. I'll try and find them. I'll put them in the show notes on the website as well.
Mm-hmm.
On another piece of, I got a photo today of some of the new terrain that I ordered from OTP. The new, I can't believe it's not Necron's terrain.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my
Not
god,
Crons.
it looks awesome. Not Crons, that's a good name. I'll have to tell Emma that.
That didn't come from me. That came from George.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, I totally stole it.
Oh, okay. Thanks, George.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks so good. She's, I think this is the first time, and I can't be certain, but I think part of the order, at least, that I placed for her is stuff that she's not printed before.
Mm.
I know she's printed some of it,
Mm-hmm.
but she's sort of half assembling it as she's going to see what it looks like and how big it is.
Brilliant.
So, depending on how late I head to Tokyo Motorsports this afternoon, I may make a slight detour via Southern River and pick some of it up, because she said I can pick some of it up today. So,
Awesome.
I'm excited.
Mm-hmm.
So, we'll see.
You pull your finger out and get it painted. We might have it for First Blood Part 2.
Well, she was saying that if everything goes to plan, the whole set that I ordered will be done by Monday or maybe Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I don't see why we can't, at least, maybe not lit, but it should all be painted.
Hmm.
Have to go and get some fluorescent green paint.
I've got some nail polish.
No, we're not using nail polish.
Oh, there you go. I wasn't actually serious, just in case anybody listening is
They're
having
horrified.
a heart attack now.
Sat in their car or on the train screaming, going, "What is she talking about?"
Or if you're a brand new painter and think that it's cool to paint with nail polish, I
I'll
really wouldn't recommend
I
it.
will have to find the photo of that dreadnought that I've probably mentioned it on the podcast before, the one that's painted with nail polish and makeup.
No,
Haven't I mentioned that?
I haven't heard about it.
It happened at ETC in 2012 when I went over with the boys. I've got a photo of it. It's one of the American players has come over with his carry case, and when he's packed the case to fly from America to Poland, he's put the wrong dreadnought in the carry case, or he thought the one that was in there was the right one, and the one that was in there is completely unpainted. It's bare plastic. And ETC was a case of, if it's not painted, you don't get to use it.
Mm.
And he's only discovered it the night before the tournament. All the shops are shut. They've got no hobby supplies with them. So he raided a makeup case from his partner. And I've got a photo of him, which I'll now have to put in the show notes as well.
You
Grinning.
can find it.
I know exactly where it is. It's on my iPad.
Okay.
Grinning ear to ear, holding this dreadnought that has been so horrifically painted. Like it's all sparkly in a funny reddy brown colour, and I don't think it meets our 3-foot standard, but at the time they accepted it. So
I think it meets the 3-foot panic standard.
I think that that was only sort of the third or the fourth year the Americans had been, and the team at the time was sort of heavily in flux in terms of getting who they could, who wanted to go, as opposed to it sort of like it is today. And they didn't really know any of the other teams who might have hobby supplies to sort of reach out and ask for. I think if it happened these days, you'd be far more likely to get.
Well, I think even though it's only 7 years, the social media means that you've got so many more connections now.
Yeah.
Whereas
even just going to the like the guys all know who the head judges are for that event, and I'm sure if they went to the judging committee and said, "Hey guys, this is what's happened. Can you help us find someone who's got paint in wherever they happen to be?" I'm sure that the host state will be able to give them like a can of spray paint and lead belcher and try and get them the minimum colours on it. So I know that Neil, who's a friend of ours, he would quite happily try and make that happen for a hobbyist for that sort of event. So, yeah, that's the episode for today. We hope you've enjoyed yourself, and it's been an interesting one for us catching up with Chris and CanCon. Before we do wrap things up, though, we have to give a special shout out and thanks to a member of the WA community who, unbeknownst to us, set up a GoFundMe page at some point in the last 24 hours at the time of recording, somewhere around the 26th or early on the 27th of February, to try and get us to fly over to Brisbane.
Yeah, so we were obviously really humbled to have been nominated for the Warhammer Hero Award, and we were obviously nominated by however many members of the gaming community, and it was overwhelming to have been awarded that title.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what you call it. And
Received that award.
Yeah, that probably sounds better. And so we were trying to work out how we were going to get over to Brisbane, and
We should also say we're assuming it's Brisbane.
Well, it did say on
the press release about Mount Gravat's Warhammer sort of store championship thing that they're doing mentions that the Warhammer Heroes dinner is happening there,
and the Warhammer Hero page says it as well.
Yeah,
but
so
we haven't got any official news yet.
No, we're kind of working
Flying
on
a little bit blind.
We're working on the theory that we've only got like 8 or 9 weeks to organise it, and got to make sure we can organise it.
And so to do that, we had a conversation, worked out how we were actually going to fund getting over there for that. And I guess we thought it was important that we went because we want to make sure that Australia's being represented.
Yeah, the last thing we want to do is not turn up, because I just think it sets a bad impression.
But it's not even that really for me. I think it's just that I started out on this episode talking about how people say that nothing happens in WA, and we wanted to run show to actually show that things do happen in Western Australia and things do happen in Australia. So I guess to not go and be part of that award ceremony dinner thing, it just wouldn't feel right, wouldn't fit right. But obviously there's a financial cost to that. So
yeah, so
we looked at doing that. We talked about a whole heap of different ways that we could try and raise some cash.
Obviously with show, and then we still have a life and mortgage and kids to feed, and dropping money that close to show, and it's
really difficult.
Even for just the two of us to go for a couple of nights, we're probably...
Well, anyway, so...
Yeah, there's significant dollars attached to it.
So you put up a Titan for sale?
Yeah,
not the new one.
No, the Warlord's staying, but the Chaos Reaver that I picked up in the first half of last year was first on the chopping block.
Yeah.
And the Warhound would have followed if necessity had dictated it did. But I listed the Reaver yesterday afternoon. I've already got one buyer who's talking to me about purchasing it and shipping it. And
apparently the general consensus from the gaming community is no man should have to give up a Titan. So
yeah. Stanley did say that. So.
Yeah, I know. There is no way that we would have ever thought to...
No, we wouldn't have put this up because it's our responsibility to meet that commitment. And we would have done that, and we have to say thank you to Bodhi for setting it up, and then to the guys and community members who have already started donating to it. It's unreal.
So I didn't know that it happened, and I got a message from Bodhi saying, I totally just cut and pasted, and I'm not even sorry. And I was like, what? I have no idea what you're talking about. And then I went on Facebook as I was walking down. I dropped my kids at school and our kids at school, and walking down from the classroom back down to the car, and had a look at Facebook. And so, yeah, I did cry under the trees in the schoolyard, going like, I can't believe that people would actually set that up to start with, let alone actually contribute to that. Yeah. Like, we're just two people who are trying to go to an award ceremony. I suppose I always think about GoFundMe things for people who have lost their house
injuries
to a fire, or something
real serious medical stuff.
Yeah, and I can't believe that people would actually want to contribute to support us to be able to do that. So
Yeah.
for someone who's lost for words, I've used quite a few of them.
So, we have to say thank you to Bodhi, and then to everyone who shared it around, and to those who've donated to it. It was very, very unexpected, and like Emma says, I'd already settled on the idea of parting with Hobby and there was plenty more that I'm still intending to list to make sure that...
That was his idea, not mine. There was no pressure from me to sell anything. In fact, it was the other way. Are you sure? Is there any other way we can do this?
Yep, that's true. Yeah. We'd already talked about it and decided that we wanted to go, and that...
I suppose when we did talk about it, and I did say, are you sure about this? Like, obviously Titans mean a lot to you and that kind of thing. And your response was, yes, but this actually means more. Yeah.
It's more important for me to go over with you and be part of that than it is for me to have another Titan that comes out once a year for a game. So, which is why I decided, that one I'm willing to part with in the short term, medium term, potentially long term. But
once it's gone, you
can always buy another one.
Oh my God.
So thank you very much to everyone who's supported that, and for Bodhi to putting it together, and it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I still can't quite. It doesn't feel right. But I'm incredibly overwhelmed, and
So thank you very much, and we do genuinely appreciate it. So on that note, we're going to wrap this episode up. Before you get all teary again.
I'm not going to cry again. I already cried twice over it.
There's no camera here, so that's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for listening to us. We will see you for episode 37 in a couple of weeks' time. Until then, though,
we'll be on Facebook next week.
Yep, with a wrap up from
Facebook Live.
Wrap up from Uprising this weekend. And I'll try and stream some of the stuff that happens down in Bunbury as well. I might even see if they'll let me bring the camera and the tripod. I'll even try and remember the tripod this time.
Oh, well done. Yeah.
Other than that, take it easy, enjoy your gaming, and we'll wait, and you'll hear from us in the next episode.
Yeah, happy gaming.
You've been listening to the Objective Secured podcast. If you'd like to get in touch, you can visit our website, objectivesecured.com.au. You can find us on Facebook, Facebook.com/Objective Secured, or you can email us, obsec@optusnet.com.au. Thanks for listening.